Well, our society tends to view work as an unwelcome chore, a necessity to ensure that we have funds to pay the bills, of course. But is it possible that work is perhaps a gift from above, something that we're meant to enjoy? Is there a divine purpose in work? Well, joining us from Denver, Colorado to discuss this is Dr. Lowell Busenitz. He is Professor Emeritus of Entrepreneurship at the University of Oklahoma and the author of Soul Work, Finding God in Your Entrepreneurial Pursuits. Dr. Busenitz, thank you so much for joining me today. Great to have you on.
It is great to be here. I always look forward to discussing work-related issues, and faith as a part of that.
Oh, yeah. And who doesn't have work-related issues, right?
Yes.
All right. You talk about faith at work, but isn't this becoming a little bit more restrictive these days to kind of go there?
Well, it is in an explicit sense, but certainly not in our hearts. And God is very much amidst that, and in there. And work is a great concept, a great issue. We think of work as sometimes drudgery and something we have to do, but actually, work was God's idea first. God worked to create the world, Genesis 1. Genesis 2, then he gives Adam the responsibility of tending to the garden, naming the animals. And work is a good thing. And God created us in his image, and so that extends from God is a God of work.
Yeah. That is an interesting statement. You're saying that it was God's idea first to work. So what are we to derive from this?
Yeah, I have been on a life journey about this, actually, and grew up in a Christian home, but it was a home that was fairly dichotomous in terms of Sunday we go to church and we do not work on Sunday. Other than feeding the animals, make sure that they're cared for and so forth, but no other farm work. And then we work the other 6 days of the week. And it was a dichotomy that was a little bit uncomfortable to me. I thought there's got to be more to this and that. And so my life journey has actually been one of discovering over time that God is already at work. I don't have to take God with me to work. That was kind of those who are interested in trying to bring their faith into their work because it's part of who they are, part of freedom as an individual is living out who we are inside. And when we have a faith in God, we want to see that integrated in. And so things like ethical decision making and treating others in a loving way, caring for justice concerns in the workplace are all great things and things that we're exhorted to do, encouraged to do, and we should do those. But still, there's more to it than that.
So could work be a context for actually advancing spiritual growth then, or our spiritual journey?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely. I just, as I've been on this journey in my life, about 20 years ago, I noticed that some of my most significant strides forward were happening in the workplace, were happening because I was at work and because God was touching me there. God was showing me that before I became a professor, actually, I was in the construction industry and the different kinds of woods. It was, and for some reason or another, just resonated with my heart, and God spoke to me through that. I didn't quite recognize it all as that at that point, but that an open grain wood versus a closed grain wood creates a very different ambiance in a kitchen with cabinets made of that. You put pine wood to build external steps that are exposed to a lot of moisture. It rots very quickly. Within 2-3 years, you're replacing it again because it's rotted. If you do it with cedar or redwood, those woods will last for years and years exposed to the external elements. And I remember just being amazed by all the different trees that God made, and are able to and have really very different purposes. And those are the imprints of God. And as a researcher, as an instructor, some of the things that I was researching, wow, that's an example of giftedness in the scriptures, that entrepreneurs have a tendency to have a unique decision style about them, which was my dissertation and a substantial amount of my research. It's like, wow, that's really a gift in the story being lived out in the workplace. And there was God's imprint on that. And so in many other ways.
Yeah, that's neat. Because in your book, you write that much of our daily work builds from God's creation. Is that kind of what you meant by that?
Yes. That his imprint is there. He's, we don't have to take God, put him in our pocket. The principles we have learned on Sunday or in a morning devotional, and put those principles in our pocket and then go to work and hopefully pull them out at the right time to use those. So that's good to do. But you know what? God's already at work when I get there. And if he is the creator of all things and he's the one who holds all things together, wow, he's already there. And so I've kind of come to view, I really have come to view that where are God's thumbprints already in place, his creation already in place in my place of work, and how can I connect with him there and honor him, and as we dig down and understand the nuances of making glass or building the right kind of code and doing it this way versus this way, or the way people learn, it's amazing the diversity and the intricacies of the creation that he has made, both in people and in nature, that our work encompasses.
Yeah. So, what are some examples maybe of how we might connect with God through our work?
Well, I didn't do a very good job of this when I discovered the different kinds of wood, but I remember thinking at that time, I ought to share about that with some folks in my church. But or as I was working with a team of students at the university, and maybe some of them had competed well at a competition, and how far they came from the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester, and so forth. And just like in my heart, I I was singing a song of praise, and I wish I would have learned to do that much more, much sooner, about what God had provided, where I saw his work in the uniqueness that student team came together as a team, the way one student was able to do this part of a presentation really well, how another student was able to do another part of the presentation in an outstanding way. And they're created in his image as well. And to be able to see that and just to stop in my own heart, whether it's in my own private life, or in a worship service in my own heart, or I hope collectively that churches increasingly give more attention to God in the workplace, and giving him glory for that's manifest there, not just on Sunday morning in the pews and in the songs we sing, but also in the various imprints of his thumbprints that we see in our work.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, the way that we work has changed for many people as more and more people seem to be working remotely now. So, any advice on connecting as a remote worker?
Yeah, it is a little bit of it's a good question, and it's a little bit of a different ballgame. But the workplace or the place of work, we may not go to the workplace always, or a lot of people are not, but the place of work is still the place of work. And guess what? God is still there. He's there 24/7, 365. And actually, maybe that even one of the things that I learned to do later in my career was to take midday walks, just 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes if time allowed to go and talk with God about what had happened during my day to that point. What was I facing? What's coming up this afternoon? Where do I feel inadequate? And I come crying out to God, God, this is way over my head. I need help on this to get through this. Maybe can you bring somebody that would be a catalyst for me to help me to do that? What are my needs that I'm facing? I know you're here. I know you're almighty. I know you're everywhere present. I need help with this. Or a prayer to over somebody that I saw that's hurting, maybe that morning, and to send a prayer up for that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Especially, it shows that you're kind of almost checking in with yourself as well, as well as checking in with God, because you become more self-aware that way. That like maybe there's something you can't handle. That I like that a lot.
And I think that's true if you're working at home or in an office building or in a school building or wherever you're at. I think that still is an option to you. And, and maybe a prayer about being sensitive to certain people's needs. And when we're on Zoom meeting, yeah, it's a little bit more arm's length, but maybe we just need to pray for a keener awareness of what's going on the other side of that camera. That give me eyes to see, Lord, that I may be sensitive to this individual's non-work needs as well as work needs.
Yeah, great idea there. Now, in your book, you tell the story of a Black musician and a Klansman. So, what can we learn from that?
Yeah, a fascinating story that Daryl's a Black musician. And a very good musician, and he was playing at a club one night, and there happened to be some Klansmen in the audience, and lo and behold, if one of the Klansmen and one of the top Klansmen, actually, as it turns out, came up and struck up a conversation with Daryl and about the music, and Daryl reciprocated, and it pretty soon became obvious that the Klansman made it clear who he was. And Daryl went back away from that. Like, you're a Black musician, I think 99.9% of us would like, oh my goodness, I'll say some few nice words and then I'm done. But Daryl went the opposite direction and took initiative with him. To continue their conversation, and then they agreed to go on a Home Depot shopping trip together, and then they ended up in one another's homes and sharing their views. And Daryl was just very patient and very intentional, and also asking questions, about their beliefs and what was going on with them. And long story short, in the end, this man ended up giving up his robe, his attire, his Klansman outfit, and actually dozens and dozens, I think a couple hundred other Klansmen ended up giving up their robes, and they gave them to Daryl. Daryl kept his closet of kind of his mementos that he had there, but as far as the impact that he had.
Yeah, like he just dove in. He dove into that relationship. I think that's kind of the moral of the story, right?
Yeah, and how many people do we work with that would never darken the door of a church, of some kind of a faith-based meeting? Never. But they will watch you. They will talk with you. And become listening ears for those people, to pay attention to what they're coming from, to notice the subtlety, learn to ask good questions, as to just what their thinking is, and let them then reciprocate with their own questions. And you got open doors there in regards to that.
All right. Well, it looks like we're about out of time here, but interesting discussion for sure. And thanks so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. What a catalyst that God has given to us in work, a place to see his goodness, but also to connect personally with him. It's a real catalyst for our own journey with him.
Dr. Lowell Busenitz is the author of Soul Work, Finding God in Your Entrepreneurial Pursuits.